questions for both of you. I think you began to answer this question with your last answer, but you can expound upon it. If elected, how would you handle training issues with the state's attorney's office, also training issues with the Baltimore City Police Department, and maybe some joint training issues that you brought up before?
Yes, sir. Thank you. You know, I would say in response quickly to what Ms. Jessamy said. You know, what's unique, I think, about this debate and this forum that to me I enjoy so much is that you all are what we, I guess, say boots on the ground, and so you are the ones that are there every day, acting, you know, performing your job in a dangerous environment. You know, not to be melodramatic, but putting your lives on the line. You know, acting as officers. So when we talk about processes and what's happening with things like FTAs and the like, you know better than both of us standing up here what works and what is happening. You know whether there is a process in place. You know whether there's this procedure that Ms. Jessamy talks about. And you know what? If there is this procedure and you're all getting proper notification all the time, and you're always getting your summonses, and you always know when you have to come to court, and you're not getting hassled by the state's attorney's office, and you're not having to read about in the newspaper every day how the state's attorney's office is blaming you because their cases went south, then that's fine, because you're the ones that are going to have to work there. So it's really, I think, a unique opportunity tonight to talk about these kinds of issues. And as the doctor mentioned, I did touch briefly about how you improve training. I think one way you do it is you get a commitment. You don't pay lip service. You get a commitment from the state's attorney's office to have the state's attorneys come in and help the officers work on training, not only in terms of filling out reports, interviewing witnesses, preparing to testify, how to testify, things of that nature, but also talking about investigative techniques, working together to investigate cases, as opposed to you all just going out, making an arrest, and showing up on the morning of trial and talking to the state's attorney for the first time. That's not effective prosecutions. I think that you need to set up a system where you're going to be working together at the early stages. Now, if Ms. Jessamy says that this is all happening and I'm just wrong and that there's all this great training going on and that you're getting it all the time and the state's attorneys are coming in and helping you do the kinds of things that I'm talking about and you're all meeting effectively to prepare cases, I stand corrected. But again, I leave it to you all to decide, because you are the ones that are working there every day. I think we can make better use of the private sector. We can bring in people from the outside who are experienced in testifying, and these are things, frankly, that I know about, because I am a trial lawyer, and I know what needs to happen to make an effective presentation in a courtroom. Ms. Jessamy has not been in a courtroom for 15 years. She's not tried a case, she's not second-chaired a case, she's never even been in a courtroom watching her assistants try cases. So it seems to me that it's hard to make the argument that you know what needs to be done to train officers to be effective in the courtroom if you don't have any courtroom experience. That's what I bring to the table, and that's what I will do when I become the state's attorney, to work with you guys, to give you the training that you need to assist you in becoming better witnesses, and as a result, getting more convictions.
All right, Mr. Bernstein, just a quick follow-up to that. Are you suggesting this training to take place during the academy or as part of an in-service training? Just a clarification for it.
I'm in favor of both. I mean, I think that the kind of training that I'm talking about should happen as early as possible. Now, of course, you know, the academy training is very rigorous, and there's specific programs and the like that they have to go through, but that's something that you work cooperatively with the commissioner. If there's a way to do it, I think you do it. The sooner you start, the better.
Ms. Jessamy, you need me to repeat the question or do you have it?
Yeah, we are involved in training of the Baltimore City Police Department. We're doing in-service training. We're doing training in the academy. I know the U.S. Attorney's Office, the State's Attorney's Office, the Attorney General, we are all involved with training issues. We start at the beginning when we're at central booking 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have those declination forms that when we decline in a case at central booking, we send all those forms to the police department because we believe that they should use them for training purposes of the officers. So we collect data that should be used. we meet with the department and talk training issues surrounding things that we see as a result of being on the ground and in the courtroom every single day. One of the earlier examples I gave was the robberies. We were meeting with the command staff and officers in reference to how we could improve the robbery cases. Same thing happened with homicide. We developed a set of procedures for dealing with homicide cases that also touched on the lab, because oftentimes we weren't getting the lab results back. So we were meeting with the police department to make sure that when the homicide prosecutors met with the detectives, that their supervisors were also in attendance, and that we had a liaison from the lab there, so that the lab person would know how much of a priority to give to the analysis, so that we wouldn't be asking for postponements because we didn't have lab results back. We set up that forensics unit because we met with the police department, we had all of these lab issues, and we were trying to work with them to make sure that the lab was the best that it could be, and that we weren't making requests of the lab that we did not need to make, because we want to use the services in the best possible light. So we set up a unit to make sure that we weren't making DNA requests for analysis that weren't needed. We weren't requesting any forensic evidence that was not needed in the prosecution of a particular case. And at the same time, we were doing training. But for my opponent to say that I don't have courtroom experience is not true. I've been a trial attorney. I just haven't been in court because I've been managing a prosecutor's office that's the largest in the state of Maryland. There is no other prosecutor who's in court. We hire trial attorneys. That's what we do. And so I don't need to be trying cases because I have trial attorneys to do that. They're in court every day. They know the issues. And that's the way it should be, because you need somebody with management experience, because there's a lot going on every single day.
Mr. Bernstein, 1 minute rebuttal.
Thank you, sir. Again, I leave it to you all, because to hear Ms. Jessamy speak, it sounds like there is this rosy world in which the State's Attorney's Office has these very detailed training programs for you all to help you become better officers, and more importantly, to help you become better in the courtroom, and to, as a result, get effective prosecutions. And if that's true, then I stand corrected. But from what I'm told, and from what I hear, and from what I see, that's just not the case. Now, you, again, all know better than I do. And if it's so true that we have this great collaborative relationship between the State's Attorney's Office and the police department, then why is the conviction rate for violent felonies involving firearms less than 50%? Why is the conviction rate for handgun possession in district court less than 50%? Why is the conviction rate for defendants who are identified by the war room as the worst of the worst 35%? To me, there is a disconnect, respectfully, between what Ms. Jessamy says is happening and what we're seeing on the ground. And you all are at a very important crossroads in your careers as law enforcement officers, because you have to make a decision, at least as a group, about whether you want this pattern of practice to continue or whether you want to see some change where you can become more effective in doing your job. I mean, Ms. Jessamy says that she's a trial lawyer, but as I've said before, she hasn't been in a courtroom in 15 years. I'd like to know the last case she's ever tried. How can you have a sense of what's happening in the courtroom? How can you have a sense of how the assistants are doing, how the officers are testifying, if you're never in there observing them? I recognize, I recognize that as a state's attorney, you have management responsibilities and you have a lot of other responsibilities, but you can still, and you need to, I submit, find time to be in the courtroom, to see how your assistants are doing, and to work with them to become better lawyers.
Thank you, Mr. Bernstein. We'll come back to you and start with this question with you, Ms. Jessamy.